What if you could be a fly on the wall of some of the most top secret conversations and actions of a president or a vice president? What if you saw with your own eyes some of the crimes that we're now talking about in the media? Today, I have with me Mike McCormick. He is the former stenographer for the White House press office, and he was specifically tasked with following Joe Biden while vice president. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Stephen. It's great to be with you.
So before we get into this, because I've been going through your book, The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. You have so much emails, correspondence, eyewitness account of the connection between the Biden family and Ukraine, specifically Burisma Energy. My mind's going to explode. So I hope I can go through this and have my audience hear this without just totally rambling on and on. But before we do that, how how did you get assigned to Joe Biden, and tell us a little bit about what that was like, and then I want to jump into some of the information that you have.
Okay. Well, I was a White House stenographer starting in 2002. There's a White House stenographer's office in the White House. We were contractors at that time for the press office. And our job was basically to be the kind of the referees between the White House and the press. They had to have an official document that was the bona fide word of the president or the vice president who was speaking to the press because they didn't really trust the press to get it right. And the press wanted to have a transcript so that they could compare their notes to the transcript and say, yes, he actually said that, and my notes reflect that. So we were always in the room or on Air Force One in the Oval Office, wherever there was an interview with the president or the vice president. In the White House press office, we were there recording and then typing those into transcripts. During the Obama administration, Joe Biden became a real handful for office just because he's so undisciplined with his just his scheduling. He would take on anything, and also just his rambling. Back then, he used to talk and talk like there was a kind of a story in the White House. He was supposed to do an opening 5 minute introduction to a phone call and turn it into a 1 hour monologue. It was a fundraising phone call. And at the end of it, the fundraisers didn't get a chance to speak, and they were just flabbergasted that he hogged the airtime, really. So that's kind of how Joe Biden was, very egotistical, had a lot of desire to be in front of the media. He was a handful for office. And at the time, the main focus of the press was on Barack Obama. They didn't really want to hear much from Joe Biden. So I said, look, I've got a young family. I'm not going to travel much with Joe Biden. I'll take on that role. And I did. And I talk about that, in the book. So then we started traveling. I went to Ukraine with Joe Biden. I went to China with Joe Biden. I went to Russia with Joe Biden. A fair amount of travel. He was a very egotistical guy who wanted everybody to know that he was going to be, this foreign policy expert who was going around the world solving the problems. He wanted that because he wanted to be the next president. After Barack Obama was out, he saw himself as a president. He was always trying to burnish that image in the people's minds.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Obama would not back him and backed Hillary Clinton, but that's a different story. I had heard from another guest that his legacy was going to be vice president, become president. He was going to set his military son Bo up to be the next president. They actually bought a mansion in his home state, which was out of his income budget, and he was restoring it and making it into this incredible mansion to create this legacy. And then he couldn't afford it. He needs Hunter Biden to start bringing in more family money. Bo ends up dying of brain cancer, not military service, like he has a lapse of memory and says often. And his legacy starts to fall apart. But then he sees this opportunity to challenge Donald Trump and become president, and does. But let's go back in time. So you've been on Air Force One, you've been in the Oval Office, you've traveled with Biden. I think the thing that most people specifically want to understand is the connection of the Biden family to Ukraine. We've got this war going on. People are speculating, do they have some kind of family sin that they're trying to keep buried there? What's going on? And then just this morning, Mike, I know you saw this. The New York Post, who originally broke the Hunter Biden laptop story, that was suppressed and lied about by 51 former intelligence officers, blocked by Twitter, Facebook, lied about by Biden himself during the debates. This new story has come out of a connection between the mayor of Kyiv, Ukraine, and the connection to the Biden family, some of their corruption, and Burisma Energy. What more could you tell my audience about this?
Well, that's a great lead in because I was a primary source for that story in the New York Post. Stephen Nelson, who wrote the story, along with Miranda Devine, she wrote the acknowledgement on the back of my book. So I was in touch with them over the holidays, told them about this book I had, and then told them specifically, look, you guys have to look at this specific period of time that Joe Biden was in Ukraine to do Burisma business. He was tasked by Burisma through an email, Burisma executives sent to Hunter on November 3rd, 2015. And what they wanted was high-ranking government officials, that was Joe Biden, to come to Ukraine to stop an investigation against, by the prosecutor general, a guy named Shokin, against Burisma and Mykola Zlochevsky. I mean, that's an email. And so the New York Post got the story. They ran with it. They did a good job on it. They looked into who Klitschko was. And the reason Klitschko comes up is Klitschko, at the time that Joe Biden landed in Kyiv for this meeting to get rid of this guy, Klitschko was a Burisma board member. He was a board member working with Hunter Biden. And to me, this was visual evidence that Joe Biden was telling the Ukrainians through this connection. He walks down the steps of Air Force One. This is a White House produced video. He walks down the steps of Air Force One and shakes hands with this guy, Klitschko. Ukrainians in power, Poroshenko, the president, they knew what Klitschko was up to. And if they saw him shaking hands with Joe Biden in this video, which was reproduced all across Ukraine, it was a news story, right? Vice president comes to give aid to Ukraine. Who's the guy that meets him on the tarmac? Klitschko. Well, they knew Klitschko was Burisma, and they knew he was coming to do something for Burisma. Joe Biden
Let me cut you off. Just sorry, I hate cutting off my guests, but just so my audience understands, Klitschko is the mayor of Kyiv. He's also connected to Burisma, right?
Secretly connected to Burisma.
Secretly, okay, just so that they understand. Okay, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's good. Please do. So he's secretly connected to Burisma, and that's Joe Biden's way of doing business, dirty business. He takes these guys that are in a secret position and he puts them out in prominence next to him in this video. And then the message comes through to Poroshenko and Ukrainians, hey, we got to work with this Burisma guy. We got to watch out for this Burisma guy. And then Joe Biden backs it up. And at the end of that trip, he threatens them. He says, look, you're not going to get the $1 billion IMF loan guarantee unless you get rid of this guy, Shokin. And that is exactly what the Burisma guys instructed him to do. His son was getting money from Burisma. And I, in my book, do a pretty good job of identifying ways that Joe Biden could have been bribed by Burisma during his vice presidency. There was a trip he took to Cyprus in April 2014, so a year earlier. Cyprus was the headquarters for Burisma's banking, and it was a very mysterious trip. I wasn't on that trip. So there's a whole chapter in the book about this Cyprus trip and what it means. And, how do you get stuff on Air Force Two? It turns out, as someone who traveled on Air Force Two overseas a lot, you can walk on if the White House principal, if Joe Biden's staffer says, yeah, we'll take that box on Air Force Two. The box goes on Air Force Two by Air Force personnel or embassy personnel. It flies back to Andrews Air Force Base with the principal, gets offloaded, and goes to his house. No one checks what's in the box. It's like every Air Force One or Air Force Two trip, it's its own diplomatic pouch. So there's a lot of suspicion around this trip that Joe Biden took to Cyprus. And then he goes out and does the bidding of the Ukrainian oligarchs a year later. When they tell him to, he goes to Ukraine and videotapes it for the White House.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And I've seen the video. I don't know if my audience has or not, but there's like a panel of people up on this stage. Joe Biden's there. He's got his leg crossed and he's saying to them, "I'm telling these guys, I'm going to be on a plane in 6 hours. If you don't fire the Shokin guy, then you're not getting $1 billion of American money." And they say, "Hey, who are you to keep money from Ukraine? We're going to talk to Barack Obama." And he goes, "Call Obama. He's going to do exactly what I say. Fire this guy or I'm leaving with $1 billion." And he goes, "Son of a gun, don't you know it?" They end up firing the guy that's investigating his family, Burisma, all of these cover-ups, the connection to this mayor. But let me go back. Okay, so I want to make sure I understand this. So by the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko, is that
Klitschko?
Klitschko. Okay.
Klitschko.
So by him standing with Biden, that's showing the world and Poroshenko, the president at the time, this guy has the ear of the second most powerful person in the world.
Right.
Okay.
And the second, and Joe Biden is here in Ukraine, in Kyiv. So this is Joe Biden. The video, the White House produced video, is Joe Biden flies in Ukraine. It's called 36 Hours in Ukraine. 36 Hours in Kyiv, I think, is the title. He flies in Ukraine. He goes, "Oh, I'm getting off to talk to a guy." He doesn't name him as Klitschko. He says he's a world champion boxer. He's a mayor of Kyiv, and he's got problems with corruption, and I'm here to address the corruption. Well, Joe Biden is going there to bring the corruption. He walks down the steps of Air Force Two. This is in the video, and he's shaking hands with this tall, very powerful-looking Ukrainian guy. That's the boxer, Klitschko. Well, standing next to the boxer, Klitschko, is the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, a guy named Jeffrey Pyatt. And standing next to him is the Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland. This message this visual, this image is promoted into Ukraine, not just by the White House. There was Ukrainian television and websites there taking this image, and they broadcast it across Ukraine. Oh, Klitschko's there. Klitschko was also a hero of the Maidan uprising. So in 2014, when the government changed, Klitschko was a big name out there with all the protesters. So he had a lot of integrity with the people of Ukraine. And there he is next to Joe Biden, but also he's secretly a Burisma board member. So that tells the corrupt Ukrainian government, all right, we got to get rid of the guy that's going after these Burisma guys. That's what Joe Biden is telling us.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, the visual there, this is like mafia tactics of like, hey, look who's with the big mob boss, right?
Exactly.
It kind of reminds me, like, this scene would be like, remember when Joe Biden goes to meet with Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and he walks in and they fist bump, and he's basically, it's like kissing the ring of the Saudi prince and bowing down. America will do whatever the Saudi prince wants. That's kind of what's going on here, is like, okay, this mayor is more important than the president, and so you're going to do what he says. Now, a follow-up question I would have for you, Mike, then is, back here in the United States, modern day, if the House Republicans are able to follow this storyline, get a copy of your book, see all those emails, the Hunter Biden laptop, are they going to potentially bring in Klitschko as a witness against Joe Biden and his family? Could the United States force that?
That's what Senator Ron Johnson was saying in the article that was published in the New York Post this morning. He said, we need to look into this. Representative Jeffries said that also. I think it's not Jeffries, sorry. There was other House Oversight Committee people in that article are quoted saying, yes, we want to have more information on this because this is significant to us. If Klitschko was part of this, and see, Klitschko is right now in a position as being almost in line to succeed Zelensky in the presidency in Ukraine. And they're throwing all this money into Ukraine, and they're going, why are we doing this? This is to these corrupt Ukrainian politicians. And Klitschko's been there all along in Joe Biden's pocket, alongside in Burisma's pocket, alongside the Biden crime family. What do we know about this? We have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to the House Oversight Committee under oath. I would love to talk to the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee by the Senate under oath and tell them what I know. I did talk to their investigators last spring. And at that time, I didn't know this connection with Klitschko was so firm between the Biden crime family, Klitschko, and Burisma. But that email, that November 3rd, 2015 email, is really what cemented it. And once I saw that and saw this video, the two of those things together were like, okay, there's a crime there. That whole trip was Joe Biden committing a crime to cover for using government assets, I was there, I was paid by the US taxpayers to basically cover for his son's business dealings, and his business dealings with this corrupt Ukrainian natural gas company.
Yeah, wow. Well, this video is going to be sent to Representative Jim Burchett and also to Senator Ron Johnson. They've both been on the show and agreed to come back. I want to get this video in front of them, a copy of this book in front of them, because they're kind of leading the charge on some of this stuff. Now, I wanted to understand a little bit better, because, and I don't want to sound like conspiracy, but I've seen in my comments section, I get on average about 3,000 comments a day. As a stenographer, you know, how could you read that many comments? And I can't. I try to get to as many as I can, right? But I see all the time people saying there has to be a connection to giving Ukraine so much money and support from America, and this connection to the Biden family. After all, it's Biden who's in charge. Biden takes a secret train in. He goes, he stands with Zelensky. He does the photo shoot to show that Ukraine has the support of Joe Biden. Maybe not the support of the American people, but of Joe Biden. Do you think there's any connection to the amount of love and money and time and effort Biden is giving to Ukraine in connection with trying to keep his family legacy clean?
Oh yeah, I think what Joe Biden, his presidencies, almost since the moment he started, was basically to cover up what happened, what he did in Ukraine with Burisma and his son. And so within weeks of Joe Biden becoming the president of the United States in January 2021, the Ukrainian prosecutor general's office, new people, came in and said, we are no longer investigating Burisma. We will never investigate them ever again. They were off the hook. That's what did it. So as soon as he became president, all investigations of Burisma ceased. Now he's throwing all this money into what he's created there. Vladimir Putin is the wild card in this. He just, I'm going to invade. I know Joe Biden was corrupt there. And Joe Biden was corrupt around the natural gas reserves. What Burisma was expert at, what their specialty was fracking. And that comes out in the book. I do a lot of what the Obama-Biden White House thought about fracking and how important it was to American energy back then. They don't think it now, but back then they did. And this whole process was basically the Obama-Biden White House saying, well, we want to help Ukraine improve their fracking industry. And Vladimir Putin just sat back and let them spend our money on it. And then when Biden came in as president, he knew he was weak. He walked in and took it over. He's about to take over all their fracking reserves. That's where their war is going. Burisma had big holdings in Crimea. That's already basically Russian territory. They had big holdings, fracking holdings in the Donbass, this eastern Ukraine area that's under siege right now between the two armies. That's going to wind up going to Putin. Putin's going to double his energy reserves and sell that eventually over the years back to Europe. And the people that pay are the freedom-loving people of Ukraine and Russia. It's a horrific, horrific international crime.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. 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 It's like drop one pebble and it just keeps rippling out. So earlier in the show, I mentioned the New York Post, this story that you helped them drop on the public, but also they were the newspaper that brought the Hunter Biden laptop story out, and then Twitter went into overdrive with the FBI and the CIA telling them shut this thing down, lie about it, don't let it go viral. Facebook jumps in on tamping that down as well. You've had access to this laptop. Do you believe that this is a real laptop, or is this Russian disinformation like we were all fed?
That's a great question. So I was given a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop by Garrett Ziegler. He's with Marco Polo. They're an anti-corruption nonprofit. In October 2021, so 2 years ago. And I started writing a Substack on it. The Substack is called Midnight and Laptop of Good and Evil. And out of that Substack is where this book came from, because I would go into the laptop and find these things and then report it in my Substack. And after a while, when things got substantial and I was talking to the House Oversight Committee investigators, I realized, okay, I need to make this a book so that people can really see it all in one sitting. So is it Russian disinformation? No. Why is it not? Because I'm in the laptop. I was a stenographer that did Joe Biden's speeches and his interviews. And if you go to, there's a website that Marco Polo put up called Biden Laptop, laptopemails.com. And they reproduced all the emails. If you go to that laptop, you can search through with a word search for any topic or any term that's in there. So I searched my name. My name, Mike McCormick, comes up twice in those emails. They were transcripts that I did, and I made a mistake in the transcripts. And what I did was, instead of putting it on the blind copy line, I put it on the copy line. And so my name comes out on top, and all the people that were in my send list come out on top. Those transcripts and that copy list are exactly as I would have done. How does Russia get to reproduce that? How would they know that? That's a random accident. If they were creating this thing, they wouldn't be able to create a random accident like that. And I take responsibility as my accident, right? That's my name. It comes in there twice. So the transcripts that I saw in there track exactly with what I did. And I'll be honest, I made some typos in those transcripts, and I'm looking at them, I'm going like, oops, I forgot to make that mistake, or I made that mistake. So how are they going to get those typos in there? If they're Russian disinformation, they would try to make it so there was no questions. But there's questions if you look in the real, it's human beings creating this stuff, and there's human mistakes in it. And I'm one of the human beings creating it, and my mistakes are in there. And I take full responsibility for those mistakes, but they're not Russian mistakes. They're my mistakes.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. That kind of reminds me, Mike, of how they caught the Unibomber. Because he wrote one specific line. I think it was eat your cake and have it too versus have your cake and eat it too. And they were able to tie that back to the guy who wrote it. And that's how they ended up tracking him down. Ted Kaczynski was one line that was just a little bit off. They were like, wait a minute, let's run a pattern analysis on that. And boom, they end up getting him. So wow, I think that you could serve a major role in. I mean, most people know that this thing is not Russian disinformation. They know that these 51 intelligence officers lied. They wanted to mislead the public, get Donald Trump out of office. They've tried to discredit this laptop over and over again. I don't think the American people are buying it. I mean, most Democrats, a new poll came out on Breitbart News that most Democrats want to see Hunter Biden held accountable for all of the stuff on there. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem, but we do need to get you in front of these guys. Maybe just a couple of questions. You're a stenographer. You were in the White House. You dealt with the vice president's office. Any thoughts on why Joe Biden, while vice president, would need 3 fake names and 3 fake emails that have 80,000 pages of content? Why would a vice president need 3 fake emails with 80,000 pages of content if it wasn't to cover up some kind of a crime?
Right, exactly. And there's an interesting chapter in the book about he has this fake email, robinware 456 at gmail.com. Well, that email figures prominently in a chapter I wrote about. Basically, the Burisma guys knew what his fake email was. It was supposed to be this closed hold, only family members knew it. The Burisma guys knew it, and there's a whole chapter explaining that. And that means that he was working with them, for them, and they knew what he needed to know on that. I'll be really interested to see what comes out of these 80,000 emails on that Robin Ware 456. And when I went through the laptop, I looked at that alias, and I did a search. And one of the more really important chapters came out of that search, because there's an email that Hunter sent to that email address, and it was kicked back because he got his sister's email address wrong. And what was kicked back was a really important sequence of events that is basically the strategy setup weekend for the Burisma kickback scheme. So, the question is that Hunter Biden, basically, to sum it up, Hunter Biden was sending an email to his dad telling him, hey, there's going to be a basketball tournament in Wilmington this weekend, and Maisie's going to be in it. My daughter Maisie's going to be in it. This is the schedule. Well, where was Hunter? Because if he went to his dad's house with his daughter, which was only 6 miles from where the basketball tournament was, and stayed overnight, he did a very prominent, important email to his collaborator, Devin Archer, from that site. That means that Joe was in on the thing from the beginning. So there's a lot of information out of this Robin Ware 456 email account, and the other ones too. And it's all coming out, but a lot of it's already in my book. I mean, It's right there. You can impeach Joe Biden with the evidence I have in my book sitting right here.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to put a link to the case to impeach and imprison Joe Biden. I want to thank you for coming on. I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to try and get this to the people in Congress that I have relationships with. I hope people in this community will share this video, give this video a like, share it with family and friends. We got to get the word out. But Mike McCormick, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks so much.